Stani, welcome to Real Vision.
Thanks for having me here, Ash.
It's such a pleasure to have you here today to talk about Aave. You've had a very interesting journey into the space. You don't have the typical background of a computer scientist. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing when you became interested in the digital asset and crypto space.
Yeah, I think I got into the cryptocurrency blockchain space 4.5 years ago. But it was very uh, kind of like a coincidence because I was practicing law and I was still studying, finishing my master's degree. And part of my studies, I was focusing on contract law. And I wanted to find somehow to make contracts more efficient. And I was looking into technology because I have previous tech background, and uh, I was looking into AI and also how to make efficient contracts. And I stumbled upon on Ethereum, which had this smart contract capabilities, which means that you have code that you publish into blockchain and it can't be changed. So whatever transactions code you have there, it's immutable in the sense, or community governed. And that made me realize that you could actually do pretty cool stuff. And the same blockchain technology, I mean, obviously is behind Bitcoin and other chains. And I think it's funny because before going into event law, I used to develop fintech applications, and somehow I don't know why I was actually very young. I mean, I've been always in my teens programming something, but when I was 18 or 19, I started to develop more finance applications, and I tried to find various ways to empower people with finance, and somehow all of my startups didn't end up being a startups. Actually, they were just projects, and that got me actually in the blockchain space to develop financial applications, which is today like decentralized finance and DeFi, what it's called
Right.
today. So it's kind of interesting journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've often joked that DeFi is the hottest topic that very few people understand. And it's great to have you here so we can kind of understand what the opportunities you saw were in the space and what you think the ultimate applications and how this can really add value to the world. Now, Aave wasn't the first platform that you worked on, that you developed. Tell us a little bit about your first foray into the space, what the need or opportunity you identified was, and what the solution was that you worked out.
My first project was called Eth Lend, which was short for Ethereum lending. So when I started to look into smart contracts, and I wanted to do a financial transaction, which is a loan transaction where the borrower has an incentive to repay the loan. Now, when we look at cryptocurrencies, they are pseudo-anonymous, and how blockchain works. So you have addresses, and they don't have names associated to those addresses.
Right.
So let's say if I send funds to some other person, what incentivizes that other person to repay those funds back? And what we realized that actually these cryptographic assets could be used as a collateral because they have value. They are traded in a secondary market. And we created a system which was on smart contracts, where you could put a cryptographic asset as a collateral and borrow another asset, or at the end of the day, stable coins. And this was just a small project that we created, ended up being a community, and we never envisioned that something like Aave would evolve from there. But
Right.
I'm glad it did.
Right. Stoney, I think that's such a great explanation because it starts almost with the first principles about how you derived this idea and why it was possible. So basically, just to review your point, if you think about what the digital asset space is, it's kind of the opposite of the traditional lending space. If you go into a bank, they're going to want to know your name, your mother's name. They're going to want to know your social security number. They're going to want to know a whole lot about your credit and borrowing history. And on the internet, obviously, you don't know any of that information. Everyone is anonymous. You just have a wallet address associated with an individual. So the problem that you identified is how can you lend in an environment where there isn't trust? And the conclusion you reached was that effectively you could stake collateral that you already owned, that you could place into the system that would work as something that could be taken or seized by the lender if you didn't pay back the loan.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So how did that work out? What were the experiences and what were the lessons you learned when you were doing that?
I think it worked well to the extent that we matched the peers. So let's say you might have a lender that gives a offer, how much the lender will be willing to give funds, let's say stable coins, to what interest. And on the other side, you would have borrowers that were giving asking for loans, and we basically order matched the market. The problem back in Eth Lend days was that there wasn't stablecoins in the beginning, so we had to kind of like be very crafty, and the liquidity that was borrowed was Ethereum, so the use case was very very narrow, and also the user experience was very very difficult compared to today. Even today, we have still challenges on the user experience in the whole DeFi ecosystem. And but I think what we learned is the key kind of component is that once the economy is growing, let's say decentralized finance, that there is not just Eth Lend or Aave, that there's other things. There's Kyber network. There is Curve for stablecoin swapping. There is something like Maker where you can put assets as a collateral and mint a stable coin that you can then deposit to Aave. Once there's this kind of like an ecosystem and all of these smart contracts work together in the sense that if you build something, a new product, financial product, it talks with each other products, that will create actually the traction. So I think that's what we learned. So we were very early with our product those days, but today it's different. Now you have this wide economy and ecosystem in decentralized finance.
Yeah. I guess the first question I have, and this probably gets to some of the issues that we're going to discuss later when you're talking about Eth Lend, is this idea is if you're borrowing and lending in different currencies, you could think about this as borrowing in dollars and collateral in euro. Obviously, those relationships can move. In other words, the price of one can fall and the price of the other can rise. So when that happens, you've got this challenge because the collateral may not be equal now to the amount of the loan that you took out if the collateral value falls relative to the value of the currency you're borrowing in. So talk a little bit about what you did to solve that challenge the first time around.
Yeah, in the beginning, it was pretty much on the lender. So lender would be able to repossess the collateral if the value of the collateral decreased to the amount that was close what was borrowed from the system. But later we understood that kind of like as a lender, you are more interested in just providing assets that others can borrow. So being a liquidity provider, as we call it. And then we took the role of liquidators and we created this kind of a network where anyone can actually be this kind of like a repo man and take the collateral and return the funds back into the protocol and manage this risk. And it works pretty well because we have roughly over 100 liquidators running in Aave, not just in Aave, but they're liquidating in other protocols. And that makes the protocol stronger because you have this network that are competing on who can get the collateral and get the incentive for liquidating.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.